Good evening. I'm Sarah Graham. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Communications and Advocacy Manager here at the YWCA National Capital Area. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this courageous conversation, which is called A Summer Racial Justice Activism, 1 year later. So last summer, after the murder of George Floyd, communities of color and their co-conspirators took to the streets to make their voices heard and began a racial reckoning. Now, a year later, we ask, where do we stand? What progress has been made? What still needs to happen? Today, we're joined by 4 activists for discussion and reflection on this past year and where do we go from here. I welcome each of them. They will introduce themselves here momentarily. And some general housekeeping rules if you haven't joined us before. 1, please introduce yourself in the chat and share what you hope to learn today. And this conversation will last about an hour with 30 to 45 minutes of panel discussion, followed up as time allows for audience questions and answers. Be sure to share any questions you may have in the chat, and we'll pose those to the questions at the end. To the panelists at the end. Also take a moment and make sure that your lines are muted if they are during the panel discussion. And then finally, as always, a friendly reminder, we are a 501c3 organization, the YWCA, and this conversation and the resources shared are nonpartisan. Now I'd like to pass it over to Monica Gray quickly, who is our CEO, just to say a quick intro, and then we'll begin our discussion. Monica.
Thanks, Sarah. And again, just want to welcome everyone here. Thank you for joining us. We, as you all know, have been conducting our Courageous Conversation series for almost 3 years, virtually for the past year, and knock on wood, hopefully in person again this fall. And we began this series to do the hard work of having very difficult conversations about the challenges that we continue to experience as our country moves along a pathway to racial justice that has challenged us for the better part of several hundred years. And in particular, we wanted to take a moment to reflect on the past year. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about the racial reckoning of the summer of 2020, but the reality is that this has been an ongoing crisis in our community since many of our ancestors were kidnapped and brought to this land. And so what we wanted to do was just take a few minutes to talk to activists in our community who have been doing the work before a lot of the heightened racial conversations of last summer, and who have continued to do the work long after the cameras have gone and left those public spaces. And so we just wanted to have take some time to have a conversation to talk about what's continuing to be being done, what's being successful, where our allies in the space need some support, and what more we can do to work with them and assist them. I think it's particularly timely because we are seated about halfway between the recently recognized Juneteenth holiday and the long recognized 4th of July Independence holiday, which, as we all know, was not always a holiday that we all celebrate equally, and in reality is still not. And so we wanted to take on the challenging conversation of what work continues to be done and how we can all work together to continue to move forward on a path of racial justice and racial equity. And we thank our partners for joining us today to talk about the great work that they're doing. So Sarah.
Thank you for that introduction, Monica. So as I mentioned, we're joined by 4 panelists today. I'm going to give them each the floor for a few minutes to introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about their activism work in the organizations that they work with. Kevin, can you kick us off, please?
Sure thing. Can you guys hear me? Because my mic's like all covered up. Alrighty. So my name is Kevin Cramer, and I'm with the Palm Collective, and we were founded on June 4th out of the uprisings of George Floyd and the murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. Literally, it's been 1 year later and the fight still continues. I quit my job on purpose on January 6th to go fulfill my purpose, to go fight for liberation, because I took all my time, energy, and talent and giving it to other people, and finally decided that I was going to give all of my time for fighting for Black people, because Black people have nobody but ourselves. I am currently I'm a co-founder of the POM Collective, and I'm director of community engagement, and I'm very glad to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Kevin. Nia, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting us to be a part of this very important dialogue. I am your humble servant, president, under the leadership of the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton here in the DMV. I've been president almost 7 years. And I've been an activist coming out of my teens. I am 66 years young. And I have a very, very pro-Black militant attitude with no apology. But I've learned over the years from good teachers, like, for an example, the Honorable late, great Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Once I learned what racism really was, I stopped acting on my energy and started and continued to learn how to fight this ongoing battle with a little more intellect, but the fire is certainly still there. So I'm happy to be here. And again, I applaud this dialogue because I find it to be very, very necessary for different groups and different ideologies, different people coming together for the same purpose, which is God's justice. We have different lanes to find that goal, but it's good that we are doing something that wasn't done in the past, which is to make an effort to unite regardless, because we admit we have the same goal. So I'm thankful to be here.
Thank you so much, Nia. Brittney.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Brittney Henderson-Fiestas. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the founder of the Truth Book Club, an activist education book club that came out of wanting to educate others and start courageous conversations in the community. We read lots of activist and abolitionist transformative justice books. I'm also the director of inclusion, equity, and justice at Spark. It's a virtual teacher wellness and social justice fitness platform. I'm also a doctoral student at the University of Southern California, studying educational leadership with an equity focus in the K through 12 concentration. My day job, apart from activism, but I also include it as an activist role, is I'm a literacy specialist at Capital City Public Charter School, and I've been an educator in Washington, D.C. for the past 9 years. So that's where my activism started, and now I'm more, while I'm still in the classroom, still in education, I'm out in the streets fighting for justice alongside my comrades and seeking to continue conversations with anyone who's willing to have them.
Thank you. And then we'll wrap it up with Qiana.
Hey everyone, my name is Qiana. Again, thank you for having me be a part of this conversation. I am the executive director of Life After Release, and I'm also a co-conductor with Harriet's Wildest Dreams and a former core organizer of Black Lives Matter DC. And Life After Release is basically a formerly incarcerated women-led organization in the DMV, where we are organizing to build a post-conviction movement where we are challenging the convictions and the system that was responsible for convicting folks in the first place. Our work is grounded in a vision of self-determination for directly impacted communities. And while we are often in the streets, we are mostly in your local courtrooms. And I think that that's really important for folks to understand. While we are defunding the police, there's so many different sectors of this system that needs to be defunded and abolished. And the road to abolishment is defunding for us. And so you will find us mostly in your courtrooms where we are, in addition to holding your local judges, prosecutors accountable, we are also helping individuals, Black and brown folks who are navigating the criminal legal system, how to navigate that system. And so far, we have been able to save over 17 Black people in this area, 717 years worth of prison and jail time. And I like to put those numbers out there because those are people who would be in the jail and prison right now today, had it not, you know, one gentleman, we saved him 105 years. He was wrongfully charged for murder, and we were able to save him. Another gentleman, 38 years, who was wrongfully charged for brutally attacking a police officer. So that's the work that we are doing, and we are encouraging everyone, you know, to get involved and to get into the courtrooms. If you can't get in the streets, get in the courtroom or do both.
Wonderful. Thanks to each of you for doing a quick intro. We're going to start with questions. And I want to pose this to anyone who wants to answer it. It's a twofold question. So what was your proudest activism moment from last year? And also, what is one that taught you the most? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. Last year, 2020, was such a year that many of us will not ever forget, mostly because of the pandemic. George Floyd was killed on my birthday. And when I saw the Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton give his eulogy the first time, I was moved in a way that was very, very compelling. And I thought he had did a great job. But what I witnessed was that the telephones here in our office began to ring like they hadn't rang before, from people all over the country volunteering that they wanted to be involved. And they were from all walks of life, all genders, and they had one focus in mind. And of course, that was God's justice. And then it doubled when the second eulogy was given. And our membership just went off the rail. People wanted to be involved. And that's when I first witnessed the spiritual profoundness of those two eulogies. And so that's what really stood out for me. It was a lot that stood out for me. But that was the beginning of what stood out for me, the way human beings wanted to stand for God's justice regardless, because of what we witnessed on television of the murder of George Floyd in front of everybody.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No, don't feel sorry at all. Never apologize for asking a question. What was your proudest activist moment? And then also kind of what moment taught you the most? They can be combined, obviously.
For me personally, I would say my proudest is so many things, sad and amazing things have happened over the last year. I think my proudest moment is not the March on Washington itself last year, but after the March on Washington. After the March on Washington, me and my comrades, some of them who were on this call, took to the streets to protest for racial justice and equity and liberty and doing what is not easy, but what is necessary. And it was raining, it was pouring down raining, and you know, we allegedly shut down bridges all around the city. And that in that moment, when you spend 15 hours outside all day, from when you woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning to get to the actions. And then when the actions are gone and the cameras are gone and people and the speeches are gone and the police are hounding you and overseeing you and chasing you down like they normally do, when you look to your left and you look to your right, and you're like, I have such amazing people with me, willing to lay it on the line and sacrifice it with me, all so that we can to live right for a brighter future. And for me, that is the most proudest, I think for me is the most proudest moment. And I think it goes to speak for all the moments that I know for a fact, without a doubt, that I have tons of people who genuinely not just care about these issues and care about the things that we're talking about, they are willing to give up their time, their energy, their money, because I truly believe that there's a price for freedom. And if our lives aren't cheap, you know what I'm saying? Even though they tell us our lives don't matter, if our lives have value, we have to be willing to pay the price. And knowing that I have such amazing people standing next to me who are always willing to pay the price for freedom, that in itself is brilliant.
Brilliant indeed. Thank you. Brittney.
Yeah, I was ready to go next anyway. Yeah, there's so many proud moments. And I can definitely build off of what Kevin said of like moments where we would shut down bridges, where we would shut down businesses, where we would stop in the middle of the street and educate people, or people would join in and start walking with us, chanting with us. The joy that we have in the streets, it's not just us screaming with anger and pain, but we turn that anger and pain into joy and laughter and dance. And that's something that Black people do culturally. We turn our pain into joy. And something that I'm most proud of is I've led over 30 protests in the streets over the past year. And just kind of it was something that's happened throughout the leading process that has started to radicalize me. I came into the movement as someone who thought police could be reformed, even though my father has been incarcerated in and out of jail since he was 13, even though I've seen and witnessed police brutality from myself and from other Black people in my community. I believe that police could be reformed. I thought, hey, we need them to keep some type of order, but we need to change some things. But once you're out in the streets and you're side by side with people, just being there and fighting for change and justice, and you see police officers brutalizing people walking, hitting them with police bikes, when you see people get wrongfully arrested, when you see mass amounts of people being kettled, police blocking them in, arresting them on the streets, that kind of starts changing your spirit a little bit, and it starts radicalizing you a bit more. And I think that has been my most proudest moment of kind of having like the shutters pulled over my eyes and kind of like getting out of that rose colored, like, oh, we can reform. And it's like, no, just like Qiana says, we have to defund. We have to disarm, and then we have to work towards abolition of not just police, but the prison industrial complex. And so that's something that's taught me a lot. And just like that radicalization that is inside me, that I can't dim that light, and that once you see something, you can't unsee it. So that's been my proudest moment.
Thank you. Qiana.
So I have a couple proudest moments. For folks who don't know, every single year around Mother's Day, we bail out Black mamas from cages here in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. This year we bailed out 5 Black mamas. One of them was a mother who was 17 years old at the time that we bailed her out. We bailed her out on her birthday. She turned 18. She had a 14-month-old baby. And, we were still working with her to, get her into fellowships and do things like that, and to basically change the trajectory of her life. So that's a proud moment. But before that moment happened, we, as a collective, Mariel Bowser thought it was very, interesting and performative to put Black Lives Matter on the street and make Black Lives Matter Plaza. And we thought it was necessary as a collective to let her know what we really mean, what Black Lives Matter really means to us, the community, and it means to defund MPD. And so we took to the streets on that, and we were able to, what I believe here in DC was basically set the narrative for defunding the police, right? And that went viral, that went national, and it started to pick up a lot of momentum when we we challenged the mayor back to say, hey, look, it's more than defunding it's more than writing something on the ground in yellow paint. So that for me was really, really a proud moment to be able to have the whole world realize in that moment when she did that, and when we countered back, to know that Black Lives Matter does actually mean to defund the police to us.
Thank you. We'll move on. I think my next question is really about change and what you see, what has changed in the last year, and then what hasn't. Those are big questions. Whoever would like to go.
Well, one of the main changes that we all witnessed was the 3 counts against Derek Chauvin, which was unusual because everybody sat on pins and needles. We didn't know what. Historically, we had all kind of evidence from Rodney King and even before him. And I think it was the collaboration of all of these organizations, from everybody's effort, where the so-called justice system just couldn't ignore this judge and the evidence. You just couldn't put it under the bridge like you would normally do. And that's a big change. Change is slow. It does not come overnight. It is a very incremental process, but as long as you're going in the right direction. One thing the Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton often says is that the new change is that you get people from all walks of life. The civil rights movement, of course, the Black Power movement was mostly Blacks and Jews who were pretty persecuted. But now you see a combination of people through their spirit or through, as Dr. King said, their character. It's not the color of our skin. It's the content of your character. It's the strength in your spirit that you can see wrong and call wrong, wrong. It's just like with Trump's followers. January 6th, you can see wrong and not call it wrong. So it's a character situation where people don't, either you care or you don't care. And we know that Mr. Trump is getting ready to run again on a lie that he did not lose the election fairly. We all know it's a lie. He knows it's a lie. His cabinet knows it's a lie. But yet, a lie does not mean anything. It doesn't bother them. It doesn't equate to them as it would for the rest of the population to know something is a lie and to have enough courage to tell the truth about it. So that's just a big change. Not ever before since chattel slavery and maybe the laws of segregation and Jim Crow, where things got hidden from racism. After post-slavery, you had your 10 years of Blacks in Congress, but after the Klan and these mobs formed, and then after the 64 and 65 signing of the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill, a lot of people fooled themselves and said, hey, this is over. We finally got to a racial balanced society. And so the racists kind of went concealed, they were pretending. But last year, or during the Trump administration, they are all out. They don't care what you think. They are racist. They hold up that banner proudly. And that's a big difference. At least we can see the enemy now. We always knew the enemy was there, but now the enemy says, I am right here. I do not have on a hood. And You can think what you want of me. We have power in the Senate or whatever they have power in. We have a lot of money, and we're going to go against the grain no matter what. For me, that's a huge difference in the same fight and the same struggle.
Thank you. Whoever would like to go.
I can go. Something that I've noticed since we started protesting in the summer is the rise in mutual aid groups that are all across the city that have sustained. And so if you're not sure what mutual aid is, we always say it's solidarity, not charity. It's direct transaction to the community, asking the community what they need, whether they're houseless, whether they need food, whether they need feminine products, anything that they need, we're there to supply it. And I think that's the place where you make community change, is when you are out there and it's like you're out on the street just setting up tables and giving people what they need, but it's not, it's like another avenue of protest because you're directly impacting lives right there and then. They're not going through donations to organizations. They're like corporations that then trickle the money down and then they barely get what they need because it all ends up in the corporation when you donate to things like Red Cross and things like that. That's something that I've seen change that I think is really beautiful in the city, that we have mutual aid all across the wards, and we have different organizations that do that. Something else I've noticed, and just the national conversation, like it's not stopping. We know that we've had a lot of social justice and racial justice uprisings ever since the inception of this country. But something with this one is that since we're not stopping the conversation, since we're not stopping putting pressure on our government, on our communities, on our community leaders, that it's something that is able to sustain, and it's keeping the conversation going, just like we're able to have this conversation today. And another thing I've noticed is just like I've seen a lot of pilot programs that are happening in different police departments where they're no longer being the first responders to domestic violence calls, to mental health calls. And that's exactly what we need. We need less police presence at those calls. We need more trained professionals that can actually help someone that is going through a mental health crisis, that is going through a domestic violence situation where they need support, not just someone to get arrested or potentially killed in a police scuffle or misunderstanding or whatever it may be. And just like simple things, like recently in DC, we shut down a discriminatory popular gay sports bar in DC, and just something like that, where it's like we have the power to use our voice to say something is not right, this is wrong, and then because we're putting that pressure on, because the community is banding together, we're able to actually make a change and make people listen. And so that's something that I've seen change, and I hope that it continues.
I'll go. So for me, the change I'm seeing is comprehending that change is slow. I also want to put there a level of acknowledgement that even though change is slow, we have to still move with a level of urgency. You know what I'm saying? Like people's lives are in the balance. So we have to move with a level of urgency, because we know that tomorrow is not promised. But I think for me, the biggest change I'm seeing is within people. I've had the opportunity this year to travel and go to different cities, and going off with Brittney saying about mutual aid. Mutual aid is the backbone of abolition. Like, people are actually creating alternatives. People are actually creating alternatives to capitalism. And that in itself is amazing. But more what you see is people are emancipating their brains. people are becoming more cognitive about what's happening in the world. And I say that when to connect that to the traveling, it's not just here in DC. We're not like a bubble. It's here, it's in New York, it's in Atlanta, it's in Philadelphia, it's in Boston, like it's in Minnesota, it's all over the country that people are really using their power and taking the time to educate themselves. And people are moving from a realm of being, how can it be, a reactionary and emotional based to mobilizing and organizing. People are choosing it. And I think that is so big, definitely in my lifetime, where my call to action, or my first witness of actually understanding what racism really was, when I witnessed Trayvon Martin's murder. You know what I'm saying? When I was in the 10th grade, watching his case every day in my African American studies class. So seeing that, knowing that, and now being in it, I can see, I'm witnessing people evolve themselves and evolve their brains. And I think that's a level of consciousness that, going off of what was said earlier on the 60s and 70s and 80s, that's a level of consciousness now that we're getting back, and also we're restoring that into each other, and we're transferring it and we're giving it to others. Like, we're sharing knowledge and sharing wisdom, and people are receptive to sharing the wisdom and sharing the knowledge. And I think that is something that I've witnessed and witnessed when I think about the change within the last year. But noting that even though we have those changes, that the changes that we actually want come with a level of urgency. And then I think it's very important that we don't think about them and, oh, like, I may not never see them in my lifetime. Because once you think like that, once you think to like, oh, I may not see them in my lifetime, you automatically create a barrier in your brain that that's not feasible. No, it is feasible. It is possible to see the things that we want, to abolish the police, to defund the police, not just in one city or a state or a small town, in all 50 states. Like, we've pulled off, like, snaps and claps to ourselves. We pulled off the biggest civil rights demonstration in world recorded history. There was a Black Lives Matter protest on all 50 states and in 27 countries. And if we can do that, and then continue to emancipate our brains, and like we say, there ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Ooh, emancipate your brain. That's my new saying. I'm gonna put it on my we'll put it on my whiteboard back there after this ends. Thank you so much for that. That was powerful. Qiana, do you want to close us out with this question? Oh, I think we may have lost them. All right. We'll have, when she gets back in, we'll touch back with her. Now, I think my next question is to each of you, if you could describe what racial justice or Black liberation looks like. Oh, Qiana, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
That's okay. We lost you for a minute. Can you tell me, do you want to talk a little bit about what's changed, you think's changed the most in the last year, if anything?
What do I think has changed the most in the last year? I think, like, as far as like, I think we were talking a little bit about, Brittney, the mutual aid stuff, going on in our communities. And I think that has brought us a little bit closer as communities, you know, and so I think that the change that I've seen has necessarily been on any level for the government, but it actually been in our communities. We've been getting a lot closer, more organized and galvanized, right? And so I think for me, I think that has changed. And I think, you know, more people are getting on board and staying on board. And so for me, that is a change that I've noticed and I'm very happy to see happen.
Wonderful.
I have one more point. I'm
Please.
Sorry. That we're also utilizing the power of collective action and radical love and in solidarity. And I'm not talking about people that put like signs in the windows. I'm talking about like real solidarity, like showing up for people's traumas, victories, sadness, their harm, like and celebrating them in all aspects. And I say that because when I look to the streets, like please forgive me, Mama, what's your name? I feel so bad who spoke first. And she was talking about like like we were seeing back in the 60s and 50s of like Jews or a lot of Black people. When I look to the streets, sometimes I may not see a lot of people that look like me. And I think I take refuge in that, because I do not believe that Black people we're not the beneficiaries of our own problems. And it's not up to us to fix everything and solve everything, because we do that every day anyway. So to say that is that people are pulling up. And I get that, because when I answered the call on May 31st, when I decided to skip work and like go outside, not go to my Zoom meetings for work, I went outside and I saw that. And it's crazy to say this, but I'm going to use a Rihanna quote. Like, when you see us outside marching for the Tamir Rices and the Trayvon Martins and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the Ahmaud Arbors, pull up. You know what I'm saying? And that is something I've witnessed across the spectrums. And now people are starting to see the intersectionality when we say free them all, from here to there, because it doesn't matter if Black people in the United States receive freedom, justice, and equity. If Black people on all 7 continents don't receive freedom, justice, and equity, there's an issue. If Indigenous people don't receive freedom, justice, and equity, there's an issue. If queer people don't receive freedom, justice, and equity, there's an issue. And I think people are now starting to see the intersectionalities that fall between all of our own oppressions, that all of our own oppressions are a microscope of one huge oppression, which is the federal government, who doesn't see blue or red because they lie to us. All they see is green and white.
And also, I hope everybody realizes one of the main culprits of the enemy of all of us is mainstream media. Now, when Qiana talked about going to the courts, that is extremely newsworthy. It's important, it's productive, but it gets no media coverage, and when you do things out there in the street, sometimes I'll get a email the same day something is going down. So that's no good for my type of schedule. But mainstream media knows everything everybody is doing. They watch and they write down, but those reporters really go back to their editors and say, hey, this is a good story. But mainstream media is owned by 4 rich families around the country. They have exceptional power and they control the narrative. They control how they understand, as social scientists, how the masses of the people are inspired or turned off or what have you. They manipulate and control behavior like experts. So when I see young people behind me, like you all, that are literally doing the work, that literally deserve the, not just the accolades, but you deserve the news coverage. You deserve media attention, because many people will join the movements, will applaud the movements, will donate to the movements, will contribute to the movements, but they have no idea that this important forum is going on tonight. And that's why I believe God is a God of power, because had it not been for social media is very powerful. You can take this forum and then send it out to people that are not here right now, that will benefit, that would love that this forum took place, that will receive the inspiration that's involved. Because every time I see you young people, I always wondered who was coming behind us, and it's you all. You're intelligent. You understand exactly what you need to do. You don't just talk about it, you get the job done. So that's that's very, very productive, and it's powerful. You know that the Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton, through the political lane, you got different lanes. Everybody's not in the same lane. It's important to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2020. And some people have criticized it. That's fine, because your critique helps it to get better. You see something in it that, hey, that's weak, that's not going to work. Bring that critical input to make it stronger, to make it better, but at least something is on the table that addresses the issue, to have police accountable as an individual for his or her actions when they are using deadly force or any kind of force. It's a start. It's not the all in all. And it's okay, again, if we criticize, but bring that constructive input to help it get better, while these young people are using their life energy to do things to keep the movement moving forward. There's only one person that has all the answers, and that, of course, is the Most High God. So you all are answers to this egregious problem, but we keep pushing, and we will get to the promised land, Kevin, in our lifetime. We'll get there in our lifetime.
Thank you, Nia. Again, powerful words from all of you. I'm gonna try to make this question quick. It's a big one, but I think you can do it. Explain in 2 sentences, 3, I'll give you 3 sentences, what racial justice looks like to you.
Racial justice is when God smiles that human beings live up to the potential of what he desired in the beginning. He don't care nothing about our color. Dr. King said it right, not the color of your skin, but the content of our characters.
Beautiful.
Although, this is hard. Racial justice to me and liberation is healing, being able to tell our own stories, and rehumanizing the most dehumanized.
Okay, I'll go. Try to keep it sweet, simple, to the point. I really want to put an emphasis on the word justice, because I'm not going for racial utopia and what is racial justice, because if we're talking about justice, we're saying that harm was done. For me, when I think about racial justice, I think there is full accountability for the people's wrongdoings to each other, that there is reparations for their harm, and that then after our reparations and after our acknowledgement, that there are new systems in place that allow every person on all 7 continents to redeem their freedom and to redeem their liberty and redeem equity without any hindrance of race, sex, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, nationality, status, like just like that.
Thank you. Qiana, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So the question was, what does racial justice look like to us, correct?
Yes.
These terms are just, I've distanced myself from a lot of these terms because they become co-opted so quickly. And just when you think you get the definition right, you're going in the right direction, here comes the co-opt version of what it is that you thought you stood for, or what you thought it stood for. And so for me, racial justice looks like humanity, plain and simple, right? I mean, it looks like humanity. It looks like us being able to live in a world where we are truly free, and being able to live in a world where we don't have to, I'm a mother of 2 Black sons, 21 and 17 years old. And racial justice looks like, to me, being able to be unafraid to send my sons out to drive in their cars and go down the street to get some Chipotle without me being in a world of fear. So racial justice to me, simply put, I think I'm gonna be even more simple than Kevin on this one, is being able to be human and treated as such, right? Where we don't have a system that puts profit over people, right? Period. Like that's just period. When you say people and human, it should be synonymous as one thing. We should not have to be talking about all these different layers and, you know, making sure that this group gets and this group gets and this group gets, right? It's making sure that we as human beings can walk, live, be free, and have our lives uninterrupted by state-sanctioned violence. Having our lives, disrupted by these systems that were made to oppress and to kill us. And so for me, simply put, racial justice looks like being able to live and be human.
That's powerful. Thank you. So we're running a little short-ish on time. So I want to give some space here at the end to allow each of our panelists to offer some call to actions to our attendees today. So what you can do to support their efforts, whether that's with time, money, participation, just kind of opening the floor up to them to kind of share about what they're doing now and really how you can support them. Whoever would like to go first.
On August the 28th, 2021, Martin Luther King III and the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton are doing it again. On August the 28th here in Washington, D.C., inviting everyone to please come and participate in the lane of our voting rights because the opposition is serious. They are organizing and serious, and we are serious and need to be organizing as well. So please come to, you can register at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. There is another march on the anniversary of the 1963 march that Dr. King stands out for. He made many speeches, but that's the one that mainstream media has everyone focusing on. If you really want to learn how he changed 5 years later when he was assassinated in '68, get the last 3 speeches of Dr. King. He was not talking about a dream in that next 5 years. And that's when the establishment said, hey, this influence is something that they did not want. So August 28th, please register. Please come out in solidarity with Martin Luther King III and the National Action Network on our voting rights. Thank you so much for having us on this panel. And I really enjoyed everyone and their comments.
Thank you, Nia.
I'll go. So I mentioned earlier that I am the founder of the Truth Book Club, and that book club was really born out of the need to have more of an education space behind the scenes where we sit down and do some readings and really, like Kevin said, emancipating our brains. I'm going to steal that for the book club. It was a great line. And it's really about liberating our minds. We seek to unlearn, unknow, and to truly know what we're fighting for when we're out there on the streets, when we're out there talking to our community. When I lead with my megaphone, there's the work has been done behind the scenes where I'm sitting down reading and educating myself constantly. And so the Truth Book Club is a space for everybody, of every race, every nationality, every ethnicity, no matter what your social economic status is, whether you can read the book, whether you just want to sit down and chat. Reading is not a necessary part of the Truth Book Club. It's more about the conversation. And that's been something that's been beautifully coming out of the book club, is really about the conversations that come out. And so I'm dropping in the chat, we have a new Give Butter, which is a form to donate. And we also have a link tree with our website. We also have an Instagram, we have a Twitter, that's all on the link tree as well. And just donating to that helps us get books out to the community. We donate books to certain organizations. We can buy books for people who cannot afford it so they can come and join us. It helps us reach the community a bit more by helping us. We usually are on Zoom, but we had our first in-person book club not too long ago. But it helps us like reach more people. We need lots of money for advertising that. We need money to organize and to connect with other people. So that'd be really helpful. And even more than donating, which that would be lovely if you could all do that or share with others who can, but it's more about joining. So please join us. Again, all the information, I just dropped it in the chat. There's a website, you can learn more. There's also an email I can write as well when I'm done talking so I can focus, can't do two things at once. But please join if you have any questions about it. It's for any age. So it can be young people, like it could be people who are ready to read about abolitionist transformative justice. It could be older people, it could be anybody that comes and joins. And again, it's about bringing the community together. Also, there is a radical wellness retreat that I am running at the end of July, July 24th and 25th. And that is through the fitness virtual platform that I told you that I'm the Director of Inclusion, Equity, and Justice at. And that is really born out of Angela Davis's call for radical self-care to really take care of our well-being, take care of our minds, to be able to go out and serve our communities. So it's a 2-day retreat. It's all virtual. There's some working out that is accessible to anybody. So even if you feel like that's not your thing, I promise you can find a way to move your bodies. But it's not just that, it's also mindfulness. We'll be doing transformative justice work, anti-racist work together. And so I encourage you to sign up for that. I'll drop everything in the chat. But yeah, so please join us, join me, radicalize your mind. Yeah, and reading is radical. We read on Sundays. The next book club is July 11th. Again, I'll put everything in the chat. It's a lot. I said a lot, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brittney. And a friendly a reminder, I will also send out a follow-up email to attendees today with all of this information. So feel free to copy from the chat or wait for my email. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. If you like hearing these type of conversations and passionate voices, you can join me every day on the weekday on a good week when I don't get really busy, live on the Y series on the Palm Collective's IG, which took me 1 o'clock or on 1 o'clock or 5 o'clock. You can also, our onboarding for our internship and our membership and volunteering will launch this Friday. And if you, this Friday as well, join TPC, Harriet Wildest Dreams, Ward 1, mutual aid, to boycott Nellies if you are in the DMV. And outside of the things I do, my comrades all outside the city are doing amazing things, from mutual aid to actions to protesting. I think 2 days ago, I just pulled up at like a senator's house. Like, there's so much stuff happening. And I just encourage you that it's not my org or the orgs on this call, that there is so many avenues to in the movement space, in the fight for Black liberation, and the fight for total liberation. I just encourage you to, step out on faith, because there is a lane for you, and everybody has their place in the movement. And I want you to remember that the most revolutionary thing you can do are decisions you make for your life. So yeah, join me live. Join membership, internship, and volunteering. And then, my favorite thing to do, I am the pull-up queen. Pull up.
Thank you, Kevin. Qiana.
Hey, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just I'm going to put it in the chat first, and then I'm going to talk about it. But if you want to donate, because the coins are always great, right? You want to donate to lifeafterrelease.org, you can do so. I'm encouraging, and I'm actually putting a call to action to everyone on the line to get trained on how to court watch, right? we heard about voting. We also need you to get into your jury boxes. Just as important as voting is also important for you to go into the jury boxes and to learn more about the courts. I can't beg you enough. This is something that is so reachable, so obtainable, and yet our courtrooms are so empty and so cold. So please, you can go there, www.courtwatchpg.org to get trained. We do orientations every single Wednesday. So we have built the container, we have the trainings, and we do it every single week. So you can make time for what you want to make time for in that. So you can get trained for court watching. Also sign our petition, because we're asking our courts in the state of Maryland to keep our courts virtual, and so that folks can have the option and access to be able to watch courts virtually, so that we can hold folks accountable that way. I'm not a big fan of body cameras, but police officers have body cameras, right? Give prosecutors, y'all giving body cameras, I'll give the prosecutors and the judges some too while we at it, right? And then also, we also have a toolkit. I'm kind of sunbeaten because I've been out at a rally all day. There's a 77-year-old woman who was snatched back under the CARES Act. And reform, if we could just sit down and think about what reform is and what it does. But the CARES Act brought home 7,000 folks out of federal prisons across this country during COVID, under the Trump administration. And the little nasty clause that was inside of that said that once COVID was over, that they were going to send those folks back. And they've started to do so, and they've started to snatch folks out of their homes and take them back into custody. And these folks have been out over a year without any incident, without anything going forward. And Ms. Gwen has been locked up for 16 years. She's 77 years old. She is a mother in our movement for formerly incarcerated folks. So please, 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 if you can go to that toolkit and do something with our mama of the movement, Ms. Gwen, and get her back home to her 96-year-old mother where she belongs, and her grandchildren and her children. So those are my 3 calls to action. And thank you all again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Qiana. I want to take a minute and just say thank you for all of our panelists today. Does anyone from the audience have a really quick question? They can ask it now if they'd like to unmute themselves. If not, that's okay too.
Qiana, if you or any of the other organizers on here, if you send something to the Greater DC chapter, that like that lady, I can get that information to our membership, because it's that information is not in the papers. I didn't know anything about it. If you know anyone, if you got something, I will send it out to all of our membership. That is very, very important work that you're doing. I think I read something about the lady, but I didn't think it was in this city. There was a lady that had got out of jail. She was older. They sent her back. Oh no, this was something else. They sent her back because she missed a phone call.
Yeah, that's Miss Gwen. That's it.
That is her. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that was in this area. Mm-hmm. You send that, we would definitely lend our support under your leadership, because that's the type of information that needs to be amplified. And a lot of people would respond and react. Most of us just don't hear it because it's not in mainstream media. So just send us anything and we will get it out. I know you've been asking me for a long time to come on the Court Watch. I'm just one person. You know for yourself, it's really challenging organizing other people. Everybody want to be the boss, but they don't know until you put those shoes on. Once you put them leadership shoes on, you may find they're a little too tight, your feet popping through. Stay in your lane, do your part, whether it's big, small, as long as we continue to move forward, we'll get there, and maybe a little faster if you appreciate your input. Doesn't have to be everybody knows your name. God knows your name. You ought to be satisfied that God is pleased with your input. Thank you.
Ashe and amen to that. Sounds like the doors of the movement are open.
Oh, sorry, I'm not muted.
You just speak, Kevin. Aileen, do you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I had a question in regards to media. I agree I agree 1,000% that mainstream media just doesn't get it right because it is owned by 4 white colonizers, and they, information control, and they've done it since the 15th century. What is something that we as independent street journalists can do more of, or is I guess that's my question. Like, what else can we do? I know very few of media folks that I run. We've been trying to keep up with as much organizing that's going on in DC. But for the things that we don't end up hearing about, for instance, Court Watch and things like that, are these things that media would be welcome to, or is there more space for independent media folks that we can do more?
Absolutely. Great question. And just understand there's something going on in the world. When you look at the weather, if you look at the real scope of things, mainstream is like really shook up. They are really not as confident as they appear. It is you in the media. Give yourself a lot of credit. The first thing you want to do, if you're a religious person, you certainly want to pray because you got to take care of you, trying to take care of everybody else. You need to get your rest in order to do your best. And then take that charge attitude. I am the media. You control the narrative. Connect with the different groups and keep feeding the information. And in God's time, not in our time, you just keep doing the assignment because media has a real important role to play. Like this particular form, get it out. You didn't send it to everybody, send it again. Send it again. Keep feeding the minds and the spirits of the people of good news. And in God's time, it will take a hold and we will continue to get closer to the goal of God's justice. He's not going to just give it to us. We have to struggle. Struggle is ordained from the very birth of the sperm going through the canal of the woman. What did the sperm do? It had to swim upstream. Our very beginning was in struggle. And then ask any mother on here when that baby was coming out. Tell me that she wasn't struggling. So struggle is ordained. We can't look for the easy way all the time. We have to understand, hey, the day was a little harder than yesterday. That's why it's important to get your rest. I don't see nobody drinking water but me. I was looking. You have to, oh, there we go. Oh, she had it all the time. All your tea. You got to take care of yourself in this war. Oh, there we go. In order to be a good soldier, a good warrior, a good fighter, because we need you. You are needed, but take care of yourself and be persistent. Don't ever stop. Be persistent in what we do until we reach that goal. Good question, media, because you have a critical, important role to play. Get the word out and keep the word out. Keep it in our faces. I haven't watched TV all winter. I mean, all 2021, except, what is that, Roku? What I want to watch.
Roku?
Mainstream, what I want to watch, And sometimes I'm missing. I was a little slow on the Bill Cosby, but I got it. Then I'll go in and check it out. So be wise, be smart, be persistent. Don't ever stop because you're fighting the good fight. In human form, you're really angels. Thank you.
I think that speaking from the District of Columbia, I really do think we need a media coalition. We have so many different people who do an amazing job of filming and documenting all of the things that are happening in the city and all the different things. We need a media coalition. So it's like, we know that together these people are working together. You know what I'm saying? And then a second thing I would suggest is it's not really for them to do. It's really for us to do, prioritizing them. I just went to an action. I woke up 5:30 this morning, left my house at 6 o'clock in the morning and stayed outside in that sun from 6 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock and 1:30 in the afternoon. And we were shutting down the White House entrances so people couldn't come to work or leave work if they were already there. And I look around and everyone's talking about when the action was over, there's like, oh, there's no media coverage. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, because we put faith in the Washington Post and all these other CNN and all these people. We send press releases and we account for our oppressors, who we all just talked about, who have propaganda and don't really care, have their own motives and agendas, to come out and then watch our actions and then document our action. No, they have to be for us, by us, like very FUBU like. We have to prioritize the people on our grounds who are doing the work. Like, we need to, as an organizer and an activist, holding myself accountable, we have to reach out to the people in our community who are doing that work, using their God-given gift to document our movement, and having them be the outlet to showcase our stories to the world, because we know, and that's guaranteed, that they're going to be right and seen in the right image. So 2 parts: coalition, building a media coalition, and also building a media coalition, and also holding ourselves accountable to call on our own media to cover our own stories.
And not just calling on them, right? Protecting them, supporting them, right? And making sure that they have what they need so that when we call them, they're not all drained out and not available to us, right? So we have to protect them. And just wanted to say one small thing is that Darnella Frazier, the teen who filmed George Floyd's murder, she's a journalist. We all are journalists, right? She didn't know when she woke up that morning that she was going to be a journalist, but she was a journalist. As a matter of fact, I think that she was the only reason why we even know the story of what actually happened that day was because of her going out there and picking up her iPhone. I don't know, I'm an Android user, but picking up her iPhone. We all have it at the tip of our hands. So we have to do exactly what Kevin said. We have to do exactly what Nia said, is that we have to start doing the work of documenting and keeping our own media. And also it's work, y'all. It's definitely work. We have to be brave to be able to use our phones and do what it is that we need to do with it and keep our own, document our own stuff.
Big facts, because the moment you cut, granted, walking around how we are, let alone being Black, is a target. But for everybody, once you cut that camera on, you a target. Like we've had conversations about this on my show, and we talked about these in movement spaces. Like, they don't want us to see the truth. They don't want to see the brutalization, like people getting brutalized. Like, we saw the news had a segment on it, like on ABC, that 1 year later, people were showing like CNN reporters are being attacked, being shot at with rubber bullets, being thrown to the ground. Why? Why are they the first to go? Because they have the coverage. They got the truth. They know. So I think that's very important. We can understand, like, that's a brave space to step into. And for the people that are already doing it, like Stoney and Chuck Modi and Black House News and all the other ones inside the District of Columbia and in other states, like, it's a brave space they do. So we have to protect them, because sad truth and reality, they are the ones that get attacked first. Like, they are watching them.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and the fruitful answers. I think as we talked, actually, Monica and I were actually talking about Darnella Frazier actually just before this call. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist now. And I think documenting is a super important part of bystander intervention. It's the least we could do. So I wanted to say thank you for everyone for attending tonight. As I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and I will send out some of the resources that were mentioned here, ways you can support our panelists today. As always, the mission of the YWCA is to eliminate racism and empower women. So we hope to, if you are passionate about that, we would also love your support. You can go to YWCA nca.org/donate now to make your gift. And Monica, is there anything you would like to close us out with?
Just want to thank everyone for joining us and hope that we can gather together in person in the upcoming months. As I said, we're hoping to get together in person in the fall. And one of our goals in doing so, we intentionally do it over dinner, and because we believe in the power of breaking bread, and the challenging conversations can be really robust, but also can be done in a spirit of community. And so we hope to have our peer activists joining us in those upcoming conversations, as well as expanding the conversations with large groups of folks as we did pre-pandemic. And just really want to thank the folks who have joined us, Brittney, Kevin, Qiana, and Nia, for your inspiring words and your continued inspiring actions. And we hope to continue the conversation and the work together. So please keep in touch. As I think as Nia said, we also want to share the work of our peers. So anything that you all are doing, please let us know, and we'll also share it in our networks. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us.
Sarah, can I encourage everyone, if you haven't already, go online and look up how Minneapolis police first described the murder of George Floyd. Many of you may know, but it goes back to mainstream media, how it was going to be covered up. You know, had it not been for the young lady with the camera, none of us would be talking about him right now. How Minneapolis police, they wrote the report. The report was official, turned in, and they were finished. But the video came out. So again, Aline Henderson, your work is crucial. You are an assignment now. You are an assignment. Thank you for letting me say that, if y'all haven't read it. Thank you.
And I actually have to go, but I just wanted to say, and I'm talking directly to the people at the YWCA who invited us all here, is that I really encourage you guys to come out, promote, and share about Boycott Nelly's and Justice for Keisha, because I, as a Black man, as a Black queer man, know for a fact that Black women are the backbone of not just our community, but of every movement in American history. And to respect Black women is to protect Black women. So if you guys could do that and share that and come out, that to me is captivating.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with y'all.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. I appreciate your time. I know your time is valuable. So, and look for an email from me just with any follow-up, or if you have anything that you want to make sure that we share, hopefully send that out later this week. So,
thank you. Bye, everyone.